Newsline World, I'm Fatima Nawzil, bringing you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. The Chinese embassy reiterates Beijing's stance on ongoing issues with the Philippines following President Marcos' congratulatory messages to Taiwan's President-elect Lai Ching-te. Israel and Hamas reached a Qatar-brokered agreement to bring aid for civilians and hostages in war-torn Gaza. Ukraine's Zelenskyy calls Putin a predator during his speech at the 2024 World Economic Forum. Meanwhile, the Russian president insulted Kyiv officials in an event in Moscow. An audio obtained from the emergency call made for Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin reveals certain requests: no sirens, no lights. And another runway incident involving two aircraft collided in Japan. These and more for this edition of Newsline World. The Chinese embassy reiterates China's stance on ongoing issues with the Philippines. Jason Rubrico reports.
During an event in Makati, the Chinese embassy addressed crucial issues faced by both the Philippines and China. Regarding the Marcos administration's gesture of congratulating Taiwan's newly elected president, Lai Ching-te, Chinese Ambassador Wang Shilian reiterated Beijing's position on the matter. Ambassador Wang said his country hopes that the Philippines will stay committed to the One China policy. It can be noted that under the One China principle, the Philippines recognizes the People's Republic of China as the sole Chinese government. This policy established in the joint communique on the normalization of Sino-Philippine ties since 1975. Meanwhile, during the event, the Chinese embassy stated that the Taiwan question is China's internal affairs and lies at the core of China's interests. The embassy also said that the One China principle is the political premise on which China establishes and develops diplomatic ties with the Philippines.
We hope that the Philippine side will stay committed to the One China policy pursued by successful Philippine administrations since the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and the Philippines, and respect China's internal affairs and handle the Taiwan question prudently so as to maintain the healthy and stable development of China-Philippine relations.
Addressing the maritime dispute between China and the Philippines, Ambassador Wang emphasized that differences between neighboring countries are normal. However, he stressed the importance of discussing and consulting these matters between the two nations.
And history has amply proved that when the two countries manage their differences in a mature and constructive manner, the road of our cooperation and relation widens. When differences are magnified and conflicts created, the relations might be deeply bogged down in trouble.
The ambassador shared that on different occasions, the leaders of both countries reaffirmed that the maritime issues do not define the entirety of Philippines-China relations. They agreed that these issues require proper management through consultation.
We hope that the Philippines will meet China halfway, manage maritime differences properly through dialogue and consultation, and jointly maintain peace and stability in the South China Sea and the sound development of bilateral relations.
For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
A spokesperson for the Taiwan Affairs Office of China made it clear that the outcome of the recent elections in Taiwan will not change China's stance on resolving the Taiwan question. Anissa de Guzman for the details.
Chen Binhua, spokesman for the Taiwan Affairs Office of China, said that the ruling Democratic Progressive Party cannot represent public opinion, while the election results do not change the fact that Taiwan is part of China. The Chinese official made this statement when asked to comment on Taiwan's new leader.
台湾地区选举是中国的地方事务。这次台湾地区两项选举的结果显示，民进党并不能代表 岛内主流民意。选举结果撼动不了台湾是中国一部分的地位和事实，改变不了两岸关系的基本格局和发展方向，阻挡不了祖国必然统一的历史大势。我们将毫不动摇坚持体现一个中国原则的9·2共识。
Chinese officials strongly opposed any attempts of Taiwan to separate from China and instead support resolving issues for peaceful reunification, according to Chen.
我们反对台独分裂图谋的行动坚决有力，粉碎台独行径，维护国家主权的能力坚不可摧，解决台湾问题，完成国家统一的意志坚定不移。下架民进党，反对台独，要和平，不要战争，要发展，不要衰退，要交流，不要分离，是岛内主流民意。
Lai Ching-te's victory as the new president of Taiwan marks the third in a row that the ruling Democratic Progressive Party will control the presidency. Reporting for Newsline World, Anissa de Guzman, SMNI News.
Another plane collision made headlines in Japan after the runway incident marked the second airport crash in weeks. Natsumi Kojima has the news.
A Korean Airlines plane collided with a Cathay Pacific aircraft on an airport in Japan's northern island of Hokkaido on Tuesday. The incident, which took place at New Chitose Airport, saw the Korean airliner colliding with an empty Cathay Pacific plane as it slipped through the heavy snow while preparing for takeoff. The Korean Air A330 has 289 people on board, including its 13 crew, but no injuries have been reported. The runway collision caused damages on both aircraft. The latest incident happened more than 2 weeks after a fatal plane collision at Tokyo's Haneda Airport killed at least 5 people. The incident took place as a cold front hits Hokkaido in recent days, while snowy conditions caused dozens of flights to get cancelled yesterday.
以上日本から小島すみニュースお伝えしました。SMNI News Japan.
An audio obtained from the emergency call made for the Defense Secretary of the United States reveals that efforts were made to keep his hospitalization a secret. Sarah Santos files this report.
911, where is your emergency?
An aide to U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin requested a 911 operator for the ambulance transporting him to the hospital be discreet, according to the call.
Can I ask, can the ambulance not show up with lights and sirens? We're trying to remain a little subtle.
Yeah, I understand. Usually when they turn into a residential neighborhood, they'll turn them off, but they're required by law to run with them with the main street.
The call was made from Austin's home in Virginia at around 7:15 p.m. local time, and the ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. It can be remembered that the 70-year-old Pentagon chief was discharged from the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center on Monday after being readmitted to intensive care without the knowledge of President Joe Biden.
He was not informed until last Friday that Secretary Austin was in the hospital. He was not informed until this morning that the root cause of that hospitalization was prostate cancer.
To note, the U.S. president is the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, but linking the two is the defense secretary. Not even Pentagon leaders nor the national security advisor was informed about Austin's health situation. Austin's duties require him to be ready at a moment's notice, especially to respond to any national security crisis. Diseases and hospitalizations are sensitive affairs when it comes to world leaders and officials. That is why the Pentagon Inspector General was prompted to investigate Austin's hospitalization due to unavailability of senior leadership. To recall, the White House was without a Secretary of Defense for 3 days at a crucial time for the United States when strikes were being launched in the Middle East. Meanwhile, in a statement issued on the 6th of January, Austin said he understands the media concerns about transparency and recognized he could have done better to ensure the public was appropriately informed. He added that he commits to doing better. Reporting, this has been Sarah Santos, SMNI News.
A day after turning away from his presidential aspirations, Vivek Ramaswamy joined Donald Trump in his campaign. Ruth Hamilton reports.
American entrepreneur and politician Vivek Ramaswamy joined former President Donald Trump on stage at the Atkinson Resort and Country Club in New Hampshire after pulling out of the presidential race, wherein he received the chants of the crowd, urging him to become Trump's running mate. To recall, immediately after placing fourth in the Iowa caucuses, Ramaswamy called Trump to congratulate him and announce his support for the former president.
As of this moment, we are going to suspend this presidential campaign. There's no path for me to be the next president absent things that we don't want to see happen in this country. And I think that I am very worried for our country. I think we are skating on thin ice as a nation. I called Donald Trump to tell him that I congratulate him on his victory, and now going forward, he will have my full endorsement for the presidency. And I think we're going to do the right thing for this country.
And during the event in New Hampshire, Ramaswamy delivered a speech and urged people to vote for Trump.
I am asking you to do the right thing as New Hampshire and to vote for Donald J. Trump as your next president, because we're not working with a lot of time here.
On the other hand, Trump made a hint of Ramaswamy's future role, which received cheers from the crowd.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, how was that? Pretty good, right? He's a fantastic guy, and he's really, he's got something that's very special because he started off with a Zippo, and he ended up very strong. He did a great job. I was actually surprised when he called because he was doing well, and it's an honor to have his endorsement. He's going to be working with us, and he'll be working with us for a long time. Thank you.
Currently, Trump remains to be the front-runner among Republican candidates after sweeping the Iowa caucus with 51% of the vote. This is Ruth Hamilton, SMNI News.
At least 2 people died after Iranian missile and drone strikes targeted 2 bases of a militant group in Pakistan. The attack earned strong condemnation from Pakistan and warned to retaliate. Melchizedek Cadiz has a story.
Airstrikes from Iran targeting 2 strongholds allegedly owned by Sunni militant group Jais al-Adel killed 2 children, according to Pakistan.
Allahu Akbar, Asmanallahu ni'mal wakeel, Allahu Akbar.
The attack in Pakistan's southwest Balochistan province earned strong condemnation from Islamabad, which called it an illegal act that could lead to serious consequences. Pakistan said the attack violated its airspace. Iran, on the other hand, said it targeted 2 bases linked to the militant group Jais al-Adel operating on the Iran-Pakistan border. Described as Sunni extremist group, Jais al-Adel is considered the successor to Jundallah or Soldiers of God, in which the latter triggered a rebellion against Iran in 2000, resulting in a decade-long insurgency. Iran blamed the group as the mastermind of several bomb attacks and kidnappings in southeastern Iran, targeting both civilians and security forces. The latest attack took place a few days after Iran launched missiles in Iraq and Syria. The formation of a U.S. coalition and the wave of attacks in the Middle East stoked fears of a broader regional conflict. Reporting, this has been Melchizedek Cadiz, SMNI News, Kuwait.
The government of the United States is soon expected to designate Houthi rebels as a terror group. Loren Santos files this report.
The decision, set to be announced in the coming days, comes amid continued attacks launched by Yemen's Houthis on commercial vessels in the Red Sea. Reports say that the Iranian-backed group will be designated as a specially designated global terrorist group, a less severe designation than that of a foreign terrorist organization. According to the State Department, both the SDGT and FTO designations trigger an asset freeze, but only an FTO designation can impose immigration restrictions on members. Meanwhile, the SDGT designation does not impose sanctions on those who provide material support to a designated group, while the FTO designation does. To recall, Secretary of State Antony Blinken delisted the Houthis as both a foreign terrorist organization and as specially designated global terrorist in February 2021, which was handed down from the Trump administration, as the Biden administration sought to make it easier to get humanitarian aid into Yemen. Meanwhile, in a statement, Houthi military spokesman Brigadier General Yahya Saraya said the group now considers all American and British ships and warships participating in the aggression against our country as hostile targets. On the latest attack, the Houthi group confirmed Tuesday that its naval forces had stricken freighter Zografia in the Red Sea, claiming that the vessel had insisted on heading for Israeli ports despite the group's warning. In a televised statement, Saraya said the group's naval forces fired several missiles at the Greek-owned Malta flag ship after its crew ignored warnings and continued sailing toward Israel. The spokesman claimed that the missiles directly hit the ship, with the resulting damage or casualties still unclear. Many countries have expressed concerns about the rapid escalation and potential loss of control of the ongoing Red Sea crisis. The latest attack has raised fears that the Red Sea waterway could turn into a battleground, posing a threat to the normal operation of the global trade system. Currently, shipping costs between Europe and Asia have gone up by up to 3 times. Meanwhile, U.S. forces recently struck and destroyed 4 Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles prepared to launch from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, said the U.S. Central Command. Reporting, this has been Loren Santos, SMNI News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Davos for the World Economic Forum to woo the global elites amid the donor fatigue that his country is facing in the West. And there he referred to Russian President Vladimir Putin as a predator. Carlo de la Peña has the details.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy referred to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin as a predator who is not satisfied with a frozen product in Ukraine during a speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
And I remind you that after 2014, there were attempts to freeze the war in Donbass. There were very influential guarantors of those processes than Chancellor of Germany and the presidents of France. But Putin is a predator who is not satisfied with the frozen products.
He also called on the West to apply economic sanctions against Russia's nuclear energy, saying that not having done so yet is a clear weakness. Russia launched its so-called special military operations in Ukraine in late February 2022 after recognizing the independence of 2 Ukrainian breakaway regions, the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. Russia claimed that Ukraine had failed to guarantee their special status under the 2014 Minsk agreements. Moscow also urged Kyiv to declare itself officially neutral and that it would never join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO. However, Ukraine condemned this and denounced the Russian action as an invasion. To recall, Zelenskyy imposed martial law across Ukraine and announced a general mobilization, while the European Union and the United States supported Ukraine and imposed several rounds of sanctions against Russia. This year's annual meeting of the WEF in Davos is held under the theme Rebuilding Trust, concluding on January 19th. WEF has over 2,800 participants, including more than 60 world leaders. Although the attention shifted on the conflict in the Israel-Hamas war in the Middle East and Houthi attacks on the Red Sea, Zelenskyy is in Davos to remind the world that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is still ongoing. The Ukrainian president is currently facing the so-called donor fatigue in the West, especially now that former U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently said he wanted to end the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and that he has friendly relations with Putin, might return to the White House in 2025.
We want peace through strength. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine, would have never done it. Putin and I get along fine. We get along very well. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. The fake news, which if the fake news would become real and honest news, 90% of our problems in this country would be solved. So I actually said, Ukraine, I know President Putin very well. I know Zelenskyy very well. I'm going to get him in. We're going to get it solved very quickly. Should have never happened, would have never happened.
And I invite every leader and country that respects peace and international law to join us. Together we can answer any crucial questions, and it will be the best answers. Peace must be the answer.
Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that the statehood of Ukraine could soon suffer an irreparable blow and that its leaders have only themselves to blame. Jane Cognita reports.
The counteroffensive launched by Ukraine has now completely failed, and the country's very statehood could so suffer an irreparable blow. This is Russian President Vladimir Putin's remarks during a forum held in Moscow. Putin said that the head of Ukraine's negotiating team had recently admitted that Ukraine was, at one point, ready to reach a deal with Russia. But after a visit by former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Kyiv authorities stopped pursuing a deal with Moscow. The Russian president said that if Ukraine just ignored Johnson, then the fighting could be long over by now.
Больше того, руководитель переговорной группы со стороны Украины поставил даже под этим свою подпись. Подпись стоит, у нас документ лежит. Нам только говорили, надо знак какой-то подать, что вот Россия действительно намерена пойти вот на решение этих вопросов мирным путем. Надо войска отвести от Киева. Отвели. Через день они выбросили в помойку все договоренности. Сейчас публично сказали, в том числе руководитель этой самой переговорной группы. А он, между прочим, руководитель правящей партии в парламенте, в Раде. Сказал, да, мы были готовы, мы это упустили, поскольку приехал тогдашний премьер-министр Великобритании господин Джонсон и уговорил нас не реализовывать эти договоренности. Ну, придурки, нет?
Putin also said that the Ukrainian counteroffensive had been intended to push Russian forces back to Ukraine's 1991 borders. However, the counteroffensive failed.
Если так будет дальше продолжаться, украинской государственности может быть нанесен невосполнимый.
Russia claims that around 400,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed or wounded since the conflict broke out in February 2022, and this includes 125,000 in the course of Ukraine's counteroffensive in early June and late November of 2023. Reporting, this has been Jane Cognita, SMNI News.
Thousands of farmers across Germany blocked roads and held mass protests to pressure the government to abandon its recently imposed agricultural policies, which they argue will greatly affect their livelihoods and families. Trisha Molina reports.
Germany was nearly brought to a standstill as thousands of farmers rallied against tax increases and subsidy cuts. In Berlin, more than 10,000 farmers joined the mass protests, with lines of tractors blocking the streets. The columns of tractors that blocked the road caused massive commotion and headaches for commuters and residents in affected cities. A video of farmers spelling the words "stop" or "fed up" in German language using their tractors went viral. The week-long protests across Germany started on January 8 and ended on January 15. The same scenario happened on December 18, 2023, when thousands of German farmers drove with their tractors in Berlin and protested planned budget cuts that would affect them. The demonstration disrupted traffic in the area. There are also fears far-right groups will take advantage of the opportunity to overthrow the government by feeding on the anger of the protesting farmers. Reporting for Newsline World, Trisha Molina, SMNI News.
A tragic explosion at a fireworks factory in central Thailand killed at least 3 people on Wednesday. Chatmongkol Pisamay Goson reports.
The death toll from a devastating explosion at a factory in Suphanburi province near the capital Bangkok is expected to rise as rescue efforts to find survivors continue.
The cause of the explosion is not yet clear. A body was discovered in the middle of a rice field debris scattered through the area. The nearby rice field was leveled flat due to the impact of the explosion. Meanwhile, Thai Prime Minister Sethar Thavisin, who is currently in Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum, called the Region 7 commander to follow up on this situation and ordered urgent treatment for those who were injured. Some villagers became emotional as they received calls to inform them of the whereabouts of their loved ones involved in the incident.
The incident happened less than a month before Thai celebrate Chinese New Year in February, when demand for fireworks is strong. รายงานจากราชบุรีนายชัดมงคลวิสมัยโกศล SMS News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
An Australian family unknowingly entertained unwelcome visitor in their home after one of the world's most venomous snakes was found lurking inside a toddler's drawer. Davis Morris has a story.
An Australian mother was left terrified after she discovered that the highly venomous eastern brown snake was hiding inside her 3-year-old son's drawer while getting some of his clothes. Australian snake hunter Mark Pelly shared the encounter online after he was called to remove the 5-foot-long reptile from the toddler's bedroom. The Australian mother wondered how the highly venomous reptile ended up in her son's drawer. Some social media users were surprised as to how the mother missed noticing the eastern brown snake. The snake hunter explained that these reptiles are lightweight, making it hard to notice that you're already carrying them in your handbags or shopping bags, which, in some cases, has already happened to other people. He added that the snake must have crawled its way as she was picking up clothes from the clothesline without noticing the sneaky reptile's presence. In a similar case, a woman in her 20s was airlifted from her home in Queensland after an eastern brown snake bit her hand while she was asleep. The Australian Venom Research Unit in Melbourne categorized the venom of eastern brown snakes as the second most toxic of all snakes worldwide. Their venom contains a deadly poison known as neurotoxin, which paralyzes the victim's nerves in their heart, lungs, and diaphragm, eventually causing suffocation. If left untreated, the venom can kill its victim in less than 30 minutes. Eastern brown snakes normally feed on rats and mice in farmlands and are common in eastern Australia, but have become a cause of concern for some residents. They are active during the day and can bite if provoked. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Devi Suarez, SMNI News, Australia.
And before we end, may we be inspired with a message of the appointed Son of God. The gospel of love is the most honorable ideology of all. And that's all for this edition. For more updates, you may visit smninewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for watching, and we thank our beloved Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy for the opportunity to be a part of this program. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Fatima Nawzil, and this is Newsline World.